السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. خير الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدى هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثات بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Surely all praise is for Allah. We praise Him and we ask His help and forgiveness. We seek refuge with Him from the evil of our own souls and our wrongdoings. He whom Allah guides, no one can lead astray. And he whom Allah wishes to lead astray, there is no guidance for him. I bear witness that there is none worthy of worship except Allah, alone without any partners. And I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his servant and messenger. Verily the best speech is the speech of Allah, the Quran. And the best guidance is the guidance of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The worst of matters in religion are those innovated by people. For every innovation is a bid'ah, a prohibited innovation. And every bid'ah is an act of misguidance that leads to the hellfire. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, we are mindful of Allah's favor unto us, that He has blessed us with Islam, the religion of truth, and He has extended our lives so that we may experience one more Ramadan. And He has given us the opportunity in this holy month to seek His forgiveness and His mercy and His guidance by doing good deeds. But these good deeds in the month of Ramadan are multiplied many times. And they are a weight for us on our scales on the Day of Judgment. We know, of course, that good deeds are not only for Ramadan. They're supposed to be the whole year round. And when we see the number of brothers who come to the Mosque of Fajr in the morning, we realize there's a lot of Muslims here, a lot. But after Ramadan we notice a slacking off. Indeed, there is even a branch or a group of Muslims who could be designated as Ramadan Muslims. We have Jummah Muslims and we have Ramadan Muslims, and there's even a species, Eid prayer Muslims. But our Ramadan is not just for good deeds and leave that alone after Ramadan. No, that isn't the purpose. It isn't a chance to get back in and duck out again at the end of the Ramadan. Our Ramadan is a mercy from Allah that we may cleanse our souls and our hearts of evil, get forgiveness, and really establish ourselves in the habit of Muslim behavior, like the Muslims of old. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took the first Muslims, the companions of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, those who followed them in goodness. They had nothing in the beginning, but because of their good deeds, Allah blessed them. And He blessed them not only with an assurance of the hereafter. But He blessed them with the dunya, and the world was given unto them. And as long as they maintained their good deeds, then they had mastery of the dunya. They had wealth, they had health, they had all the things that people look for in this world. But they were not dazzled by this. They knew that the purpose of life was the hereafter. They knew that the purpose of life was the hereafter. Amr ibn al-As, I think it was, when he was dying, he turned his face to the wall. This is a sign, like a sign in Arab culture of desperation. He turned in his bed and turned his face to the wall. And those who were around him, including his many sons, they said, "Father, what is this? You know, your good deeds, you're fighting the original battles, Battle of Badr and so on. However, you shouldn't be worrying." He said, "I am worrying because," and he reminisced, "at the Battle of Badr, so-and-so and so-and-so, who were better men than me, they died, and we had nothing to bury them with. We put them in the ground and covered them with grass. And later, we were given the dunya. We all became very rich." And Amr ibn al-As was very rich. Each one of his 4 wives got something like 2 million dirhams. And there, you know, the share is an 1/8. So he was very wealthy. He said, "I worry now that maybe my reward was given to me here." So that was the character of the companions. They had the dunya, but it didn't dazzle them. And today, whatever little dunya we have, we become dazzled by it. And we hanker for more. And we hope for more. This is the nature of the human being, of course. But we should bear in mind that although this dunya is not bad for us, we can have the good things of the dunya. The real purpose, and this is the consciousness we strive to achieve in Ramadan, that the real purpose of Ramadan, the real purpose of life, is to establish ourselves in the deen. Most people give their zakah during Ramadan, and the zakah, as we know, is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. And recently I gave a talk in Dubai that it was entitled "Zakah, the ignored and neglected pillar of Islam." That although it is one of the 5 pillars and Islam stands on its pillars, it is to a large extent ignored. It's not laid down by the government as it was in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, that he had trained zakat collectors who were expert in this area of fiqh, and they went out and they collected the zakat, they totted up, they added up what was due from each person. Nowadays, most of us, we don't have land and camels and sheep and things. Some of us do, but I think the great majority of us don't. So our zakat is in cash and jewellery and so forth, 2.5%. But some zakat is collected at different times of the year. We can't give it in Ramadan. For example, those who grow fruits and who harvest crops, they have to pay their zakat from the crop when the crop is ready, when their barley is ready, when their oats is ready, when their apples or their lemons or oranges or whatever, are ready, the zakat collector comes and tots up how much is taken from each person. It's very complex, very complicated, very sophisticated system. Is the land watered by rain alone, or is it irrigated? Because if it's irrigated, he pays less, more, because he's increased his crop. If it's relying just on the rain, he pays less. So for most of us, in this modern age, we pay our zakat during Ramadan. And it is a very, very important thing. The giving of the zakat, I'm not talking now about zakat al-fitr, which is given in grains at the end of Ramadan. There's two kinds of, well, there's three actually. There's three kinds of giving. The zakat, which is the zakat on our wealth over which a year has passed. There is the sadaqah, which is the free-willing giving, an extra, like nafil, so to speak. And there is zakat al-fitr at the end of Ramadan, which is normally given in foodstuffs. And although this seemed to be a bit redundant a few years ago, now, with the rising price of food, I think people will once again be very glad to get rice or dates or barley or whatever. So this is another zakat. But the zakat I'm referring to is the zakat al-mal, which is taken on our wealth, which most people choose to give in Ramadan. Why? Because of the increase of blessings. And we know, actually, the Muslims, they're the most generous people. When I was a non-Muslim and I traveled to Morocco, it was Ramadan, and I was amazed, I was shocked, people going, Fadl, come and eat, It's something you don't get in the European culture. They say, don't come, we're eating, go away. It's exactly the opposite. So I saw, the most generous of people. You should be. And the Prophet ﷺ was more careful, was more generous in Ramadan than at any other time. And he loved to see the Muslims being generous at any time. There's a hadith about this tribe, I think they were called the Bani Asad, or the Bani Hamid. They were a tribe of Bedou who 2 years they had missed their rain out in the desert, and they staggered into Medina. The hadith describes them as bones covered in rags. Skin and bones covered in rags. And they were carrying their children. They had no livestock left. They'd killed them all to eat. Their camels had gone, their sheep had gone, everything had gone, and their children were so weak they carried them. And they staggered into Medina, skin and bone covered in rags. And the Prophet ﷺ brought them to the Masjid, and he called the Muslims, and the Muslims came, and they gave heaps of food and clothes. And as the narrator of the hadith says, as the Prophet ﷺ saw this pile of clothes and food increase, that his face shone like the sun. He was very happy to see the Muslims being generous. And the Bani Hamid, of course, their gratitude was enormous to be saved from near death. Because we feel a bit hungry sometimes in Ramadan, but we don't realize what real hunger is. And the last of the British explorers who was over here in the 1950s, Wilfred Thesiger, he never became a Muslim. He was actually a kind of spy for the oil companies. But he said that in the West, hungry means you get a message from your stomach that there is some room left, or some room has become available, and you can take something more to enjoy. But he said hunger for the Bedou means that they're immovable, they can't lift their arms, and their eyesight becomes clouded like smoke, and their hearing reduces, and they're on their way to dying actually. This is hunger for them. And you know the people here, before Allah blessed them with the oil, they were like that. A very good book to read is Desert Sands by this Wilfred Thesiger. He describes the people of the Emirates in the 40s and the 50s when he was here, and how desperately poor they were. And they lived mostly on dates and water, a bit of camel's milk. And that was their system, that was their life. So now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us. Although, due to the ignoring of the forbiddance of riba, we have some economic difficulties here. But by and large, we can say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with an easy life, with comfort, with food, freedom from fear. It's a sign, actually, a blessing of the government here. That small surah, لإلاف قريش إلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت الذي أطعمهم من جوع وآمنهم من خوف. That the freedom, the government's business really is to free the people from hunger and fear. And if they've done that, they've done their job, really. Free them from hunger and free them from fear. And after that, to put the awareness of religion on them, so that they may be pious people, they may be good people. So this is the importance of Zakat and the giving in Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Salatu wassalam ala Rasulil Kareem, Amma ba'd. All praise to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. We laud Him and call down blessings upon His most noble messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, our Ramadan should be one of increased study also. Not only giving, not only reading Quran, but studying it. Studying and pondering on the meanings of it. And for those of you who speak Arabic, and those of you who speak Urdu, and Bengali, and Malayalam, and all these languages where you have a tradition of scholarship, you have some facilities for increasing your knowledge. During Ramadan you can listen to radio, you can listen to tapes. We English speakers, we don't have so much. We're recent arrivals on the scene. The Kasbah in Sharjah this Ramadan is hosting talks in English every night about 10 o'clock after the Taraweeh prayers. Not the Kasbah Masjid, but the centre that's across the canal from it. Tomorrow night there is a talk called The Importance of Tawheed. It's by some Saudi scholar whose name escapes me now. But the point is, we have some facilities, those of us who are English speakers, we have some facilities now to increase our knowledge of Islam during Ramadan, and we should take these opportunities. It's very important. Otherwise, if we're just lounging around after Taraweeh and wasting our time, staying up late, it takes the edge off us. It takes the sharp edge off our spirituality. Here in the UAE, as I say, there are many good charitable projects going on. For example, the Red Crescent, which is not a religious organization, but this year we've seen them give out enormous amounts of money for breaking the fast, for the iftar, providing iftar at the masjids and their tents and so forth. And this is good. This is very good. The only problem is, as I know from my 18 years living here, is that, how can I put it, the rich amongst us, and it's not only here actually, it's a human failing, the rich amongst us like to give to public or well advertised projects. Like, for example, last year when the Israelis were bombing Lebanon, enormous amount of money, millions, tens of millions of dirhams was collected here for the Lebanese, many of whom are not Muslims by any stretch of the imagination. But nevertheless, a lot of money was collected and given to them. And one American brother here was telling me when he was back in America this summer, in his state of North Carolina, they needed a project to enlarge the Masjid. And you know, there are very many, very wealthy Muslims from Pakistan, from India, from Palestine, from Egypt, in America, who are fabulously wealthy, millionaires, multi-millionaires. And they collected in one day $2 million to make this project. He went with the Imam of the Masjid around to see some of these rich men and spoke about the overwhelming numbers of new Muslims that were coming in North Carolina, so many that they could hardly deal with them. They said, we can have our lessons in the Masjid, but the problem is, most of the new Muslims, they're living in the projects. In other words, they're blacks. They're Afro-Americans, as they're called, and they live in the government projects, the ghettos, you know, the places where those rappers live and shoot each other and sell drugs and all the horrible things that they do. And the place is not conducive to spiritual life. They're living with drug sellers, prostitutes, pimps, murderers. The place is filthy. And, you know, for the new Muslim, he needs to escape all that. He needs to make a hijrah from that kind of life. Otherwise, it's very difficult for him to keep up his spiritual life. They wanted to buy a house, you see, that cost very little, comparatively. A house to put these new Muslims until they got on their feet and could move out, look after themselves. They collected zero, nothing. Nobody wanted to give. Why? Because they're poor blacks. They're not counted as important. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed them with Islam, but still, they don't care for them. We have a similar situation here, brothers and sisters, and I've worked for this Dawah Centre Darlibir now for many years. Who are they looking for? They're looking for Europeans. They're looking for the Gora Sahibs, you know. And it's true that the Europeans do become Muslims, some of them, but mainly in Europe. Not the Abdul Dinar and Abdul Dirham who come here, who live in Jumeirah, with their tennis clubs and their golf clubs and their bars and their, you know, all the life that they have here, like the British Raj in India. They're living like that here. But in England they couldn't imagine this kind of life. In England they're on the 7:25 train, crushed in with all the other people going to central London. They're nobodies. But here, they're Raj, the British Raj, the Gora Sahibs, and people are respecting them from morning to the evening. They're not interested in any kind of religion, not even Christianity. You go to the churches. Who's in the churches here in Emirates? It's the Sri Lankans. It's the Keralites. It's the Filipinos. Do you see any Europeans there? Very rarely. Very rarely. One European said to me, he said, yeah, I'll go to the church on Fridays to see these, because it's a great place to meet girls. So they're basically not interested. But who has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed with Islam in the Emirates? He's blessed, first of all, the English-speaking people from the subcontinent, India, Pakistan and so forth. Either they become Muslims or they come back to their Islam here. And more than that, in terms of numbers, the people from the Philippines. Now why that should be, we don't know. People say, that the Filipinos are naturally religious, that they have a feeling for family life, and they're not as foreign to this culture as the Thais and the Chinese and so forth. But again, the Chinese are starting to come to Islam too. We have tried to collect money for these people, and no one's interested. I'm talking about the big rich men. They will give a lot of money to build a masjid in Indonesia, but they will give nothing for the debt of a Filipino construction worker here. So, this is wrong, and this is not the way that the Prophet ﷺ wanted. As we see from this example of the Bani Hamid, he sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was very happy, delighted to see them helping the poor, see them helping the wretched. And he was always aware of the dawah, the power of giving to new Muslims, the power of helping the poor Muslims, that this is part of our religion, that we give food to those who are hungry, and clothes to those who need them, and money to those who need it. And we are blessed for that. And especially in this month of Ramadan, when the deeds are increased, we should bear this in mind. We ask Allah to have mercy on us. We ask Allah to forgive our sins. We ask Allah to give us the blessings of this holy month of Ramadan. May He make us better Muslims at the end of it, increase our faith, and bring us together as brothers, bring us together as families, bring us together as an ummah, that we may overcome the wiles of the disbelieving people. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ahli Ibrahim, innaka hamidun majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala ahli Muhammad, kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ahli Ibrahim, innaka hamidun majid. Keep Salah.